All right, so welcome back. Remember last time we were getting into Tkinter in MySQL, all about connecting them and pulling those specific records.
Yeah. It's amazing what you can do with a little Tkinter magic, right? When you combine it with a database, tons of possibilities open up.
Absolutely. And today, well, we're kind of leveling up, We're going to figure out how to make those unique IDs, the ones you see everywhere, like, order numbers or those reference codes, those sorts of things. But we're making them clever, right? Combining today's date with some custom text.
Yeah, think of it like giving a unique fingerprint to each piece of data you put in there.
Exactly. Way better than just plain numbers, right? And the cool thing is it's super practical too.
Oh, absolutely. Practical and well organized.
Right. So our guide this time is from Plus2Net. It's a walkthrough. We're going to build a little Tkinter app. It takes in a user's name, adds it to our database, and then boom, it makes that unique ID. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay, first things first. The code starts by grabbing today's date. Sounds basic, but it's key for our ID.
Yeah, for sure. It uses that Python's datetime library to snag the current date and then formats it all nice and neat. YYYYMMGDOM. Easy to read.
Smart. No more mystery dates for those IDs. Okay, date's done. What's next?
Okay, so next up, we got to connect to the database, right? And the cool thing is the code, well, it gives you options. You can use SQLite or MySQL. Just pick the one you want, uncomment it, and you're good to go. Flexible.
Options. I like it. So we've got the date. We're connected. How does it actually make this unique ID? Where's the secret sauce?
Okay, so here's where it gets clever. When you add a new name, right, the database just gives it a plain IB number, like 1, 2, 3, and so on.
Right. Basic stuff.
Exactly. But for these fancy IDs, well, we want something a little more polished, like 000009, that standardized look.
Yeah, that definitely looks more professional, way better. But how do we go from a plain 9 to 000009?
That's where the zfill function comes in, this little guy. It adds those leading zeros like magic. You get that consistent 5-digit format every time.
Ooh, that's a good one. I can already think of a bunch of ways to use that one.
It's super handy. Okay, so now we've got all our pieces, today's date, and that perfectly formatted ID number. What do we do now?
It's time to build that unique ID string, right? Like put it all together.
You got it. The code takes a custom prefix like AB in this example, then it adds today's date, and then bam, it sticks on that zero padded ID. You could end up with something like AB 2023 1208090009.
Oh, okay, I see. So you could change that AB to anything, right? Like if it was for orders, you could use order or ticket if it was for tickets, right?
Exactly. That's what's so great about it. You can tweak it to fit, well, pretty much anything. But hold on, we're not done yet. One more important step.
Lay it on me. What's the grand finale?
All right, so the code takes that new ID string and it updates the database record with it. It's like putting a unique stamp on each entry.
So the database is like working behind the scenes to keep everything organized. Even when new stuff gets added, I'm starting to see why these unique IDs are so important.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about efficient data management. But, there's another layer we haven't even touched on yet, Tkinter.
Oh, right. We've been so focused on the code, I almost forgot about the user-friendly part.
Yeah.
So how does Tkinter fit in here?
Well, Tkinter is what makes this whole thing, well, user-friendly. The example uses labels, a text box where the user can type their name, and a button to get everything going. Think of it like the front end, the stuff the user actually sees and uses.
So Tkinter is like the bridge between all this code we've been talking about and the person using it, right?
Exactly. And of course, can't forget about error handling. Super important when you're working with user input and databases. Especially databases.
Oh, yeah, error handling, like
Yeah.
a safety net, right? So what does that look like in this case?
Well, the code uses what's called a try-except block, this little guy. It catches those potential database issues. Think of it as a backup plan in case something unexpected happens, like connection problems or if the user puts in something that doesn't quite work.
Okay, that makes sense. You wouldn't want everything to just crash because of one little hiccup. So let me see if I've got this right. We've got code that grabs the date, connects to the database, makes that formatted ID number, builds a whole unique ID string, and then updates the database, right? And then we've got that error handling in there to keep things running smoothly.
Exactly. You got it.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And to think we're just scratching the surface here,
Oh,
right?
yeah. There's so much more we can do with databases. So many possibilities.
I can't wait to see what else we can do.
Well, speaking of exploring more, remember how we've been talking about retrieving records, based on their unique ID?
Mm-hmm.
What if We wanted to switch things up a bit. Like, what if, instead of a specific ID, we wanted to grab a random record?
Wait, a random record? I don't know. That sounds a little chaotic, doesn't it?
Maybe a little, but think of the possibilities. Imagine you're building a quiz app, right? You could use this to shuffle the questions each time. Or maybe you're making a music player and you want a real shuffle feature.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Random could be fun, but I'm guessing it's probably a bit more complicated than just grabbing a specific record.
Well, yeah, it definitely adds a few more challenges, which is exactly what we'll be diving into next time. We're going to explore all sorts of techniques for pulling up those random records from both Squadet and my school.
Ooh, sounds like a real deep dive. I'm ready.
Me too. It's going to be a fun one, so make sure you come back for that.
And don't forget to subscribe. That way you won't miss out on all the coding fun.
You know, it's funny, when you think about it, these unique IDs, they're everywhere, but we never really, stop to think about them, you know?
Yeah. Online orders, tracking numbers, even like tickets to a concert, all unique IDs.
Exactly. And it's all about, well, keeping things organized. Imagine a huge online store, right, without a way to give each order a unique ID. Chaos.
Oh, totally. And this system, using the date, a custom prefix, and that auto-incremented number, it's pretty clever. You can see like when it was created and what it's for just by looking at it.
Yeah, it's elegant, concise. And then using ZFill, it makes all the IDs the same length, which is helpful too. For sorting, and stuff like that.
It's like each ID tells a little story.
Yeah.
And ZFill makes sure they're all formatted the same way so it's easy to read. Form and function.
I like that. But we can't forget about the user, right? We've been talking about all this back-end stuff, but Tkinter is what makes it, well, usable.
Right. We talked about it a bit, but I'd love to hear more about how it works with the database, like how it handles everything the user does.
So Tkinter, it lets us make a simple interface. Labels, input boxes, buttons, things like that. And it connects directly to the code we've been talking about. So when the user types in their name, hits the button, Tkinter grabs that input, sends it to our ID generator, and then displays the result. Seamless.
So Tinter's like the conductor of this whole data orchestra, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bringing it all together.
Nice analogy. And don't forget error handling. Remember, try except. It's our safety net when we're dealing with unpredictable things like user input and databases.
All right, you mentioned that can get a bit messy. Can you give me an example of like a real-world error that try except could catch?
Sure. Let's say someone enters their name, but they use a special character that messes things up. Without error handling, the whole app could crash. But with try except, we can catch that error and maybe give the user a message like, hey, no special characters, please. Keeps things running smooth.
I see. It's like having a backup plan, right? Just in case. So it's not just about preventing crashes. It's about like making it a better experience for the user too.
Exactly. And speaking of user-friendly, the source code, it even tells you how to set up the database table itself, which is really important.
Oh, right. We've been so focused on the code, I forgot about the actual database part. What kind of information does it give you?
Well, it shows you how to set up the table with the right data types and fields for both SQLite and MySQL. Make sure your app can store and retrieve everything correctly. It even gives you example SQL code, so you can just copy and paste it into your own database.
Wow, that's handy. It's like they give you the blueprints, right?
Yeah.
As well as all the code for making the unique IDs. This is a really thorough guide.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that, well, building a good app, it's not just about writing code. It's about understanding the whole system, the database, everything, making sure it all works together.
Well said. I'm already thinking about making my own ID generator. Maybe play around with some custom prefixes, see what I can come up with.
There you go. That's the spirit. Once you get the basics, there's so much you can do.
And speaking of exploring more, I'm really looking forward to that random record stuff. It's going to be fun to see how it works.
Oh, yeah. But before we get into that, there's one more thing about unique IDs that we should talk about.
Ooh, what's that?
Security, especially when you're working with sensitive information.
Oh, okay. Now we're getting serious. What do we need to know?
Well, imagine you're building an app that handles like medical records or financial stuff. If you're just using like simple sequential IDs, that could actually be a security risk.
Wait, really? How so?
Think about it. If someone gets a hold of a list of IDs and they're just numbers, it wouldn't be that hard to guess the next one in the sequence, right? And then they could potentially access data they shouldn't be able to.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about that. So how do you prevent that?
There are a few ways. One common way is to use something called UUIDs, universally unique identifiers. They're like way longer and more complex and basically impossible to guess.
UUIDs. Sounds complicated.
They are, lots to learn about them, but maybe that's a topic for another day.
Definitely. So we've covered a lot today, haven't we? The code, the interface, security. It's pretty amazing what you can do with unique IDs.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface.
Well, I can't wait to see what we uncover next time when we dive into that random record stuff.
Me neither. It's going to be a fun one. So for everyone listening, get ready. We'll be back soon to unravel the mysteries of random record retrieval.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking about unique IDs, and I gotta say, I'm learning a lot. Never realized how much was involved, you know?
Right. It's one of those things you kind of take for granted until you really start thinking about it. They're everywhere and, well, super important for so many things.
Totally. We've covered how to make them, how to use Tkinter to make it all user-friendly, but we ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, didn't we? Remember, fetching a random record from the database. Let's get into that.
Okay, so random record retrieval. It might sound a bit odd at first, but trust me, it opens up a ton of possibilities.
I'm still trying to, grasp the why, you know?
Uh,
It feels a bit random, no pun intended. Like, why would you want to do that?
okay, think of it this way. Let's say you're making a quiz app. You want to mix up the questions each time someone takes it, right?
Right.
Or a music player, and you want a real shuffle feature,
Yeah.
not just the same order every time.
Okay, yeah, now you're making sense. So it's about, keeping things fresh, right?
Yeah.
Adding a bit of randomness to your apps.
Exactly. Makes things more interesting for the user. But of course, it also comes with its own set of challenges, From a coding perspective.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Well, most databases, they like things to be organized, right?
Yeah.
You usually search for a record based on something specific, like an ID or a name. But when you want a random record, it's a different ballgame. You need a different approach. Depends on which database you're using, too.
So it's not as easy as just saying, hey, database, give me any record.
Haha, not quite. Some databases, they have built-in functions for that. Others, well, you might have to get a little creative with your queries and coding.
Sounds like we're getting into some advanced stuff now.
It does get a bit more technical, yeah. But that's what we're here for. And in our next episode, we're going to dive deep into specific methods for grabbing those random records. We'll look at both SQLite and MySQL, too.
Oh, awesome. Can't wait for that. Always up for learning some new tricks,
Me too. And that's what's great about programming, right? Always something new to discover.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive on unique IDs. Who knew there was so much to learn, right?
It's a whole world in itself. But it's important stuff. Unique IDs, they're everywhere, and they keep everything running smoothly, From online shopping to, all sorts of things.
Absolutely. And it's not just about creating them. It's about, the whole system.
Yeah.
The database, the user interface, even security. Lots to think about.
Right. But hey, the more you know, the better. Right. Makes you a better programmer, a better problem solver.
Couldn't agree more. So for everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a blast.
And don't forget to stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll be tackling that random record retrieval head on.
We'll see you then. And in the meantime, happy coding, everyone.